Welcome to today's webinar, which is titled, Closing the Achievement Gap, the Data-Driven Instruction. Today is the third installment of the series of programs that are held and offered by Cofyouth Incorporated, aim to educate and inspire the educators, parents, and all those with interest in the missions of this organization. For anyone joining us for the first time, Creating Opportunities for Youth Incorporated is an organization founded by a group of educators that seek to advocate for children with special needs and their families with the help of other educators and service providers.
Today's webinar is hosted by Mrs.Ngozi Martin-Oguike, the CEO of the organization and certified teacher of students with disabilities, as well as a learning disabilities teacher consultant. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded for future viewing. Following the webinar, we will try to make time for a brief Q&A session, so please take notes and keep track of your questions so that we can answer and discuss afterwards. And without further ado, we will get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are coming to the end of the series of webinars on closing achievement gap through data-driven instruction. And today, we just continue from where we stopped 2 weeks ago when we had the part 2. I'll just do a little bit of recall by going through the objective. The participants, at the end of this series of webinars will be able to develop data to improve students' learning and close achievement gap in their schools. This also has to do with home. Whether you are working with a student at home or at school, you will be able to close achievement gap because of what was caused by the pandemic. Remember, we've been talking about this during the lockdown. Not every student was able to cope with online learning. We will need to continue to close the gap, over a period of time for every student to be where they should be, with our help. So in the 3 sessions, our objective was to collect students' data, analyze information to find gaps and growth in the data, use findings to plan and execute lessons, and collaborate with professional teams, and that means both teachers and administrators, and then be able to map students' individual goals based on all the data collected. This is what we've been working on, and we're going to focus a little bit more on the last 2, collaborating with professional teams of administrators and teachers and mapping students' individual goals based on data. That's what we're going to focus on. If you're working with just one student, this will be helpful. If you're working with a group of students, this will also be helpful. In fact, if you're working with a whole community, like you're a superintendent of a district or a state superintendent, this will also be helpful for you. So today, we are going to recap from what we've done in the past. Data helps us to follow the involvement of students and categorize the efficacy of strategies in operation. So whatever strategies you've been using, this is how you are able to judge your strategies and judge whatever you have achieved or what you haven't achieved by collecting data. Teachers can implement approaches that advance learning goals. What are your new goals? What are you approaching? Where have you reached and what else do you need to do? This is what helps you collecting data. Data should be used in classrooms, homes, and churches to show when we meet our goals and our targets. And data collection should be followed by using the information collected to drive change. I can't emphasize that enough, that if we collect all the data in the world and we're not using them to drive our change, then we're not doing anything yet. We're just wasting our time. And there are so many schools and institutions and offices that have so much data, and yet it's not being used continuously. And we talk about using it with fidelity, making sure that every year you reassess yourself through those data you've collected and make changes. You know, they say Rome was not built in a day. So your change does not come just with one data. It doesn't come at the end of every week. It could come periodically over a period of time, and then you begin to see the change manifesting. So that's what we've been doing in the past. We use games, we used the Kahoot last time. We collected a little data, we were able to discuss how the data is working. And by the way, the winners of the Kahoot were Helen and Praise, and we have them in view. So thank you so much for playing the game last time and for the information we gathered. Hopefully in the future, we'll use more and more of that. So this is the recap from 2 weeks ago when we had our last webinar. So today, because we're also targeting administrators, I'm starting from curriculum planning. The question is, what are we looking at when we plan our school, district, or state curriculum? Here we use the curriculum standards, the common core curriculum state standards, and then we bring them down to our district levels, we bring them down to our school levels, we bring them down to our departmental levels, and we're able to use that plan a syllabus for our students. So there is a tendency to copy curriculum from other geopolitical or socio-economic regions because their curriculum seems superior and appear more productive. I don't know if you've noticed that, quite recently, someone told me that she's starting a school somewhere in the eastern part of Nigeria, and she wanted me to look over the American curriculum that she got from California, which she wants to use. I said, well, there's nothing wrong with having a curriculum from California that you want to use in a rural state in Nigeria, but you have to map the curriculum. You have to make sure that the curriculum is brought down to the level where it could be used in that environment. So it's been a discussion. I gave her some tips, and we're still working on that now for her to know how to get the curriculum down to the level that she wants to use it. So what I'm trying to pinpoint here is that curriculum does not exist in a vacuum. There are things or situations that drive a curriculum. And the following data should drive the mapping of curriculum standards in our school districts. Data about the students, data on social and cultural life of the students, of the people that you are going to use the curriculum on, data about their learning, data about the subject matter that they need to learn, data about the objectives that you want to achieve, data about their learning experiences. So you wouldn't have a student who has never seen a train or reading on a train. You now begin to drive, the data that has to deal with the experience someone had on a train. You have to start with what the person knows, begin with the environment that the person is in, and then you can build from there. So that's what I've been talking about. You don't just take out a curriculum from another school or another state and use it on another one. You need to make sure that the environment, the social cultural environment, is related in the data that you're providing, in the curriculum you're planning. Standards are informed by the standards that we have. Like I said, we use the core curriculum content standards. We use the common core state standards. We use some of these standards. They are standards. They are not the curriculum itself. So they have where they are coming from. What do we want to achieve? What brings about the standard? For instance, the common core state standards is used in so many parts of the world, especially in the US here. And the standards are like worldwide standards, what somebody should know at any point in time. So if it is a 12th grade standard, by the time you are 18 or 17, you are in 12th grade, this is what you should have mastered. You are in kindergarten, this is what you should know. And those are standards. So what informs them? What brings them about? First of all, the best state standards that are already in existence. So they don't exist in a vacuum. Whatever has been in existence in the past, what you've learned in the past about the children or about the students is where you begin on a standard. Then the experience of the teachers, the content experts, the states and leading thinkers, whatever they have put together over the years are also used to bring about the standard. So if in a particular state or in a particular part of the world, this is the expectation, it should also reflect on what the students will learn. And then standards are also informed by the feedback from the public. And that's where I'm saying that the social cultural environment really affects what the standards should be. The social cultural environment where you are has a lot to do. Socio-economic environment also is important, because when you are talking all about rich people, for instance, you are dealing with urban cities children who are poverty, who are in poverty communities, they don't understand you. They get angry, they can give up, So when I share this, you're going to have access to the common core state standards, which I have a link. When I share that with you, you can always visit and see where these standards come from, because they can be used anywhere in the world as standards that will drive your curriculum. So data for lesson planning, like actually from the question, we will need to plan our lesson to meet up with every student. Those who are not being serviced in our classrooms due to lack of knowledge of what their problems are, so we need to involve them in our lessons. So when we have our curriculum done, we have a curriculum, then we are going to be planning our lessons based on the curriculum. Every month, this is the map. A curriculum is like a map, and we have to have day-by-day activities, week-by-week activities based on that map. In other places, it's called your syllabus. That map is your syllabus. So when we're planning, we'll find out what is on this syllabus and we'll follow it. Like I said in previous time, if a student or a particular class or a whole group of people are not coping, then we have to stop and reteach and be able to move forward together. And also, we can also have people in different groups. So let's see how this works. That's where I'm going right now. Let's see how it works. So we use data to plan our classroom activities, and such data are like your class work, the students' work, the presentations your students are doing, the projects that they are doing. Those are the different data that will help us say, okay, let's improve on our activities. Let's change this. Oh, this works very well. This didn't work at all. Let's change it. Then there is what is called the cumulative files. I want you to note the cumulative files because we'll talk about it a little bit. The file of school information such as grades, attendance, discipline issues, standardized assessment reports, and other information from a student's educational career. That's what Luxon called it in 2022. She said cumulative files are so very important because they cover all this. And every school should have it. I can't mention this enough. I said it before. Administrators, if you have a school, you must have a cumulative file of everything that somebody can open and see so much history about the child. The other one is the standardized test scores. We normally have in New Jersey here the NJSLA, it's the New Jersey standards for learning standards exams for the children in K to 12. So not every grade level has that test. Some do have it, some will have it the next year, like 9th grade doesn't have it at all. So we have also what they call the COGAT, Cognitive Abilities Test. This is for determining students who are at whatever cognitive level, whether they can handle honors classes, whether they can handle gifted and talented classes. Those are some of the things that we have to standardize. Tests will help us to get the COGAT. We have the Woodcock-Johnson 4, which we use to determine students who might be eligible for special education and especially learning disabilities. We have benchmark tests that are done quarterly. Sometimes they are done twice a year. In some places they are done quarterly, just to know whether the students are able to meet the benchmark. It's like a summative of some sort, telling you what a child has learned, whether they mastered the learning objective. We talked about the SLO last time, the student learning objective. So at the end of a quarter, we do the benchmark. Some of you will do it as a test, a major test in your school, or end of a term exam, like if you have first, second, and third term. Where we have a semester, we do quarterly. So we do it like 4 times a year. Then we have the diagnostic tests. These days, many of the diagnostics online, they have so many of them. I used to think it was just iReady or Read 180, some of those, but now there are so many of them. There's iRead, there are Insight, and so many that different schools have chosen to use. So what the diagnostics do for you is like what the old time, those of you who are reading teachers, you must have used the DRA, the Diagnostic Reading Assessment. I used to use that. Well, I wish I could get some copies of that again, because they kind of give you the real thing, because you do it face to face with the child and you check out and see this reading speed, the reading comprehension skills, the fluency and all that of the child. That's a diagnostic. At the end, you can say, okay, this child should be reading at level 4, but he's reading at level 2. What do I do to get him to the next level? The diagnostic will now give you the material that you need, that in-between material that you need. You go back. For instance, if I test a student with iReady, which is online, at the end, I will go back as a teacher. Those of you who are teaching here or who use such data, go back and look for the teacher's book. You now use whatever the student did not do well. You check what materials will remediate it, and you go there, pick up those materials. Sometimes you print them out. Sometimes you give it to the child as additional lessons online, if they are the kind that like to learn online, and you monitor the child to do it. If he doesn't do well, you reteach, and then you monitor him to do it again, or her, until the child begins to cover that gap. So you can do this physically. In fact, I like it when people do some of this remediation physically. You print those materials out, work with the child one-on-one or in a small group. We'll get to that. So that's how you reply your lessons and make sure that every child's need is met. Okay, so we also use the learning style inventory, the learning style surveys. The multiple intelligence survey is a major one. I think some of you already have access to that. So we have a data-driven improvement plan. When we have our data and we're already planning our lessons based on data, the next thing we'll do is to have a plan to improve. You know, just like that plane, you want to move, you want to go off on it and do something more than just having a lot of paper and all those materials around you. So running a school without a data warehouse is like being a pilot without an instrument rating. That's what Shaw said in 2003. To focus teaching and learning, we can use data to differentiate instruction in all class settings. Make sure that every student gets what he needs. If you have students with disabilities, they can exist in the same classroom. So to focus our teaching and learning, we can use data to differentiate in all class settings. And like I said, all students deserve what they can get. You cannot give the same medicine to someone who has diabetes and the person who has diarrhea, for instance. Sorry about that. So they have two different things happening to them, but you have to give them two different treatments. And that's why when you come and you feel that every child must do things the same way, learn the same way, then you got it all wrong. So the improvement plan that we must make in our schools and our districts and our homes, when it comes to even bringing up our children, is to find out what each one needs and then give them the interventions that they need. So we must present periodic data. That's why we must watch very closely to have a periodic data to help with ongoing interventions. We must intervene for every child that is lagging behind. A child might just be lagging behind because he was sick for a while and left school for a short time, and now he comes back and is lagging behind. You must intervene for him and bring him up to where he should be so that he doesn't fall out. I have experience with that. Full year data at the end of the year, you need data, okay? And it's meant to improve practice and plan future syllabus. Maybe there's an area that nobody did well in the year past, and then it's a new year and you are going to plan. As you're planning, you have to find out, why did they all fail this? Either the presentation was wrong, either there was no proper timing, no teaching. So you can even start with that area that the students need to improve upon and then go into new areas. So the full year data helps us to plan future syllables. You have to meet with students to review and reflect and understand their glows and their grows. We talk about this a lot, in the practice. The glows are the areas where they glow, where they shine, where everybody is competent and doing well. At least 90% of your students have mastered, and there's glows. And individuals too, where somebody has done so well, they are glowing in it. And then the grows, the area where they need to grow, we don't want to use something like inefficient or use hard words, when we're dealing with our students. And it doesn't matter, student at any level. Even myself, as someone who is a lifelong learner, I want to learn, I want to improve. If you want to tell me to improve and you say, okay, maybe you need to grow in this area, it's more friendly and it's going to make me really want to do it, rather than say, oh, this needs improvement. Those words we are now very much economical about using those kind of words. We need to glow when we need to grow. So we also have to meet with co-teachers to analyze and compare data. The days are gone when the teacher was an island in your own room and just around yourself. These days, you discover that you are under scrutiny to a large extent. If you're in a private school and your students are not mastering, I'm not saying not passing, they might be passing, they might be in an environment where, just you know what is in your data, and your students are struggling, you don't care really You know, it doesn't work, it doesn't fly anymore. So like I said, if you're in a private school and your students are doing well, people will know. And the parents will know, the people in the environment will know. I'm not talking about passing WAEC. That's not a sign of doing well these days, because we know a lot of things that happen. It's about being productive. It's about being, you know, citizens who are making impact in society, no matter how old or how young they are. So those are the things that will bring people to you, whether in a private school, whether in a public school. So teachers really need to come together and learn from each other. This week, I had to ask for a particular teacher in a group, in a team of teachers, that we want a date when she is going to be able to talk to the rest of the teachers with the rest of us present. She'll talk to the administrators, the child study team, and the teachers about what she's doing that is really making her students do well, succeed. The kids are very focused in her class. As soon as she leaves and the other teachers of the day come in, we discover that the class is a mess for the rest of the day. Why? How is she able to control the students and they're doing well academically while the other teachers are not? So that's by analyzing data. Analyzing data is not just math or 1 + 1 and all that. That's not what data is. Data is also the ongoing write-ups about what's going on in the classroom or in the school. All that information, some of them will be in essay form and some of them will be in Excel. So you meet with administrators to review student performance also. That's another thing. If you're an administrator here and you are not doing it, calling on your teachers to come and let's sit down and find out how the kids are doing, look at your data and see that there is some growth and the need for improvement. You are not advising your teachers on what to do to make sure that these kids who are failing will begin to do better, or the kids who are not coming to school, like I talked about attendance. You have children who have been absent from school for 10 days, nobody asks about it, nobody is intervening, then you are not doing well. The administrators need to meet with the teachers and make sure that they are advancing in different areas of their data. Okay, so example of curriculum planning software. I have the EduPlanet. You will also see it when you get this PowerPoint. The EduPlanet is like a curriculum mapping software. It's an all-inclusive software for course planning. You can use it to plan your unit design, lesson planning, professional learning. It has a lot in it for those of you who are teachers in practice. These are aligned to standards and learning goals. There are a lot of them, but I just decided to put up that of EduPlanet that help you to plan. So the EduPlanet 21 helps. It's a curriculum mapping software. I would like some of you to study it more closely on your own, and if it's something that you can use, especially those who are not in districts where there's a software in use already. Those help you to organize your lessons, like Genesis that they use in my school district. You can plan your lessons on Genesis. You can, it will help you to follow the standards that are already set by the district. So that makes life, a lot easier. So these online materials are very, very helpful these days. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, as it were. Okay, and some of those also help you to know where you need to differentiate. That's purpose of some of these. I'm going to focus a little bit more on reviewing with your administrator, your instructional leader. Those of us who are in schools, you know that your superintendent, your curriculum, your dean of curriculum, your principal, vice principal, those are called instructional leaders. So you need to have data meeting with your principal to help you to examine the figures, that you put of students' performance on the test clusters to predict and work towards student achievement and avoid failure. You need to do this ahead of time. That's why we do what I talked about in the past, formative assessment. Formative assessment is ongoing. Your student interview, your day-to-day discussions, your classroom projects that you do in little groups and all that ahead of the big test. That is your formative. And then you write down the scores. If a student is always, below average, you need to start immediately to discuss that. That's why principals should have maybe once a month or once a quarter or once in 2 months, you call your teachers. You may not be you alone, may not be only the principal doing it. You may have a number of other administrators or department heads who will be doing that. Call the teachers, let's look at this together. And it's not meant to, gotcha, like they will say. It's not meant to find a fault. It's meant so that you make sure that the students avoid failure. We would say in my former district, FINAO, failure is not an option. So yes, failure should not be an option for any child. So there's an Excel worksheet that I usually use, prepared by teachers to review students' performance, with the principal. I'll show you an example in the course of this. For example, class data from an English language art class will include state test scores for reading and writing, benchmark assessment, each marking period, overall scores, iReady scores, DRA scores, formative assessment, summative assessment, demographic information. Sometimes you don't even realize how important those are. You find out, whether the student has free lunch, whether the student is from a home that the parents are divorced, whether, all those things. When you put all those information together, they help you, whether it's a one-parent or whether it's what the level of education of the parents. Some of those things, when you put them together, you will find out so much. I'm still going to come to that. When it comes to classification, if the student is a student with special needs, what is he classified as? Those are things that will help you to review with your instructional leader, and then you will know where to tweak the instruction, where to change the instruction. So you will present the performance in different colors, to represent presentation levels. Red is the lowest level of performance, yellow is the next, green means proficient, and blue is advanced. These provide a pictorial guide that will give a quick view of a class performance. Okay, this is particularly helpful for differentiated instruction and meeting measurable goals and objectives as stated for students with IEP, especially for students with IEP, but good for every student. I'm going to stop this screen share at this point. So yes, we have, you can look at the page, you can look at this page and see the different colors. When you make when you do your presentation, the principal might not, or the leader, the school leader, you may not, if you're a school leader here, be asking one by one for every student. But looking at this, like what I said before, when you look at the red is actually needs improvement, red, that's what it is. Then you have the green, which is medium, which is like satisfactory. You have the this page I'm using may not be the ideal. I have another one that has the yellow, which is like in between, in between satisfactory and needs improvement. And then you have the blue that is excellent. So you can see areas in which these students are doing excellently. For instance, this student, markers of future success on the page here. This student completes, all the students that complete their classwork. In this particular class, it shows that a lot of students complete their classwork. So a few of them don't. Why don't they complete their classwork? On this page, you will see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 students in this class who don't complete their classwork. Then you can have a meeting with those students. Ask them why. Are they sleeping in class? Are they distracted? What is it? Why don't they want to do their work? And from there, you can start intervening for them. What about homework? A number of them complete their homework, but then some of them don't. About 3 students don't complete homework. Is there a situation at home that makes them not to complete their homework? Is there something you can do? Can you call the parent and ask them if they can, find time to do this for this child? And those that are on 2, they are yet to get to 3, so keep encouraging them. And then those that are already on 3, they are the ones that are glowing. There you have to enrich them, give them more. They might want more homework. They might want projects that they can do on their own. Work with them on that. So if you look at the PARCC score, PARCC was an old exam that we used to take in New Jersey. The students used to take. These kids came into this class having done so bad below. So many of them are in red. Only 2 kids are on green in the PARCC exam. And look at it, below average, 650 to 749. That's where most of them are. So right now, what are you going to do with a class full of students? And this is a real class, even though the names here are not their real names, but this is a real class that I had. This is where they came in from with this type of data. But we are trying to make sure that at the end of the year, their data turns from being red to being green and blue. That's what we do. So this kind of data you collect on your own day by day, week by week, helps you to improve and bring them to academic independence. You can see the number of students that are academically independent on the F column there. Some of them are, but a lot of them are not. What am I going to do that at the end of 7th grade, every child in my class will be at the level they should be for 8th grade? That's academic independence, growth. Doesn't mean perfection, but growth. All right. All right. So that's the spreadsheet that we normally will have to present to our administrators. We'll have to present them to our administrators regularly. Okay, so there are data systems that we can use. The Excel format is affordable. That's what we used to use. That's why I showed it is from the past. Now that's not what we use. We have all kinds of software that we use, making it easier as the days go by, but it's affordable. However, there are several data systems that could be more efficient. For instance, the Google Classroom. If you have the Google Classroom or the Google Suite that you pay for, the advanced ones, it helps you to grade student work and provide feedback to students and parents. Okay, it not only analyzes student performance, but have a built-in notification that facilitates automated outreach to parents based on collected data. It would periodically email parents to inform them of their students' grades and assignments completed as the teacher records it. So maybe weekly, depending on what you prompt it to do, on a weekly basis, emails will go home, showing parents what their kids did on Google Classroom all week and where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, what assignments they still need to do. You don't need to raise a finger once you set it up at the beginning of the year. but you need to monitor it to make sure that sometimes, technology doesn't fail you. That's also important. Therefore, the science and art of teaching go together in a student-centered, data-driven school. Our schools need to be like that. They help teachers, and that helps teachers, and that helps the parents. So we need to invest in technology. School administrators and districts should endeavor to invest in the most efficient technology, especially those that will free up more time for teachers to concentrate more on teaching and learning and on student achievement. We have different ones. There are millions of them, but there's Google Classroom, Schoology, Moodle, Canvas, Genesis. If you pay for them, you'll be amazed what they can afford, what they can give you if you have the paid one. Differentiated instruction. I hope this answers some questions. So the use of data to devise interventions through multi-tier system of support. That's what our sister was asking at the beginning about multi-tier students system of support. It's not every student that will catch up at the same time. So let's look at this. MTSS enables students or schools to proactively address students' needs through research-based scientific strategies that have been proven to work. Research-based scientific strategies that work. That's what the multi-tier system of support gives us. So it's system of support in which in the same classroom, you have 3 tiers. You have at least 3 tiers. You have the lower base, you have the middle, and you have the upper. So at the beginning, everybody is there. Everybody is at the beginning. Everybody is doing the same work. But as you go deeper into the data, as the kids continue to do their work and you begin to see changes, then you start bringing out the next tier of students, which is the second tier, where that student needs more support because he's missing this and that. Maybe he's a grade level below or 2 grade levels below. So you begin to give him extra support. When you make the small groups, you put him in a group that needs interventions. So as you continue in that group, there might be maybe 5 students in your class who are in the group that needs support. And you are giving them, daily intervention. And you discover that even in that group, they are not all at the same level, that there are 2 out of them who need to be on another tier. That is the 3rd tier. And when they are on that 3rd tier and they are not doing all the work, they are not getting the improvement that they should get, then you start recommending them for services through the maybe special education or basic skills, whatever your school offers that will give them extra time, extra resources, bring in a teacher to come and push into class to remediate some of the areas of needed improvement, bring in the parents and go over what he does in school so that when the parent goes home, he or she will be able to implement the same things at home. That is multi-tier. So by that 3rd tier, if the student does not improve again, then you need to evaluate the student for services, for other services in special education. So that's what the MTSS does. There's another, they also have what they call the response to intervention. They mean basically the same thing, but the approach is a little different. So you need data, which includes attendance, the students' attendance to school, the students' behavior or conduct, the student grades, how he's been improving in his grades over the period of time. This will help you to now give him that multi-tier standard system of support that he needs to improve in your classroom. You need immediate and early interventions. That's the only way they can be effective, or that's the major way that they can be effective. If a student has lagged behind for several years, then you are trying to do interventions, they will not catch up easily. So you need immediate and early intervention for every student that has some delays. According to Lee, 2019, delays in assessing that data meant that teachers were not intervening with struggling students quickly enough, and the schools faced higher than average rates of high school dropouts, chronic absenteeism, and suicides. The continuing Lee's quotation I have here, our leaders recognize that we were not proactively meeting students' needs, as we were using the data more like an autopsy as opposed to a diagnostic tool. In many of our schools, people actually use data as an autopsy. At the end of the year, oh, how many students failed? Oh, 50 of them failed. Oh, what a terrible school. That's an autopsy. You waited until they failed. But like I said, failure is not an option. You need to diagnose. You have someone that is sick. You need to diagnose, find out what the problem is, and solve that problem before the sickness becomes, chronic and will never end. And then at the end, you say, oh, how many people died of COVID? Oh, 1 million. And that's the number, because you didn't do an early intervention. You didn't know what you need to do at the right time. But now we are giving our administrators this opportunity to know what they need to do and do it. That's what it means. That's what it means. We shouldn't use our data just for fancy, just keep it in the classroom and say, oh, we have all that data, see all the failures, what are you doing about the failures? And what are you doing about those who are doing very well? That is what differentiated instruction continues to ask for. So that's why we have what they call the Child Find program. You find the child when the child is still young and early. So we have the Child Find program. We have the intervention and referral services. If you find a child that really needs, intervention, some kids are diagnosed of autism early, some are diagnosed much later, just because nobody noticed the problem that child was having. You need to find out, get close, and refer them to the intervention and referral services if they have it in your school or whatever similar thing they have, or report to the school administrators and let them start immediately to zero in on that child. If you're the child's teacher, start immediately you notice something and help the child. Response to intervention or the multi-tier system of support is in different schools. If you don't have it, we can talk more about that. You can reach out, we can talk more about it and have you set that up in your schools, and then especially those that are outside of the US, and monitor it, and you will see how you can find a lot of improvement with certain students. Okay, in the US, you have the IDEA, the Individuals with Disability Education Act. So it is an act that really protects the rights of children with disabilities in schools, especially, and their parents also. They have the parent rights in special education. And so those empower us to make sure that whatever the needs of these students are, that we are there to meet them. The child study team, which is called different things in different places, is also the team that helps to make sure that these individual education plans are being implemented for the students who need them. So we streamline data collection processes and focus, immediate attention to make sure that we intervene quickly and address the needs of the students on time. Early intervention actually is the best. That's what I'm we are talking about here. You need to set goals. Intervention involves setting a goal for each child and monitoring them and towards their goal, growing towards their goal. We need to review their standardized test results. That helps us to know where to give them services. Some kid can be in 4th grade and is getting goals to be able to cover up for 2nd grade and 3rd grade. That is, you have to review his test and know where he's placed and help him to do that. We need to share results with the individual student. That's another thing many of our teachers have difficulty doing, which I think is the single most important thing that helped me as a teacher and still helps me. When you call a child to your desk or to a small setting and let him look at his results and map his own goals along with you. You have goals for him. You ask him, are you able to do this? What are we going to do? You plan it together. You discover that when you share these results and map his goals with him, he's more able and motivated to follow through and complete it. He feels he is so important. I bring them to my meetings. I say, you are the most important person in this meeting at this time, and they smile, so it helps to zero in. Sometimes you think it's difficult. No, what are you doing with the time when the students are doing work, when the students are working independently? That's when you call the student that you need to talk with. You don't need extra time. You need to plan your lesson that half of the lesson time students can work independently, and you can do group work, small group assignments, and individualized work. That's the time for some of those interventions. So you need to use data to decide their interventions or remediations. You need to share some of those data also with the parents so that the parents will know what they should be doing at home. You need to use the data to have grouping, plan with standardized tests, compare results of the standardized test with classroom performance. That's another area that I want to talk about. One test does not decide everything. Your test must be ongoing. Okay, if there is disparity between the test and what the student is doing, you can see a student that passed so much, and then in your class, that student is failing. He might be a nervous test taker. He might have low motivation. Maybe a student that passed the exam in your class very well, the classroom test, but whenever there is a state exam, he fails. Maybe he doesn't feel like he needs to bother himself with the state test. After all, that doesn't concern him, So you have to call them and find out, use data to decide what group they will be in. Maybe the group where you are only just there to motivate them to do their work because you know that they can. Maybe the group that needs the basic skill teacher to work with them. So student groups, okay, create sitting charts. Your data will help you to create sitting chart and provide a setting for individual support. Like I said, individualized support is so important. You cannot treat every patient with the same medicine. Remediation, we've talked so much about it. So when you remediate a struggling student, you are addressing skills to ensure that he learns the content or skill that he needs to catch up with his grade level and age levels. Some of the strategies include small group. We call it, in one of my schools, we call it 30 by 3. That's for 30 minutes of the day, 3 times a week, you are working in that small group with that particular child or with those particular children, remediating just those areas of need. You could do it for one term and they all catch up. You could do it for 1 month and they catch up. You could do it for just two lessons and that child is doing well and you need to move him on. So we need to implement these things in our classes. One-on-one intervention, we do that all the time. You can do it in class. You can also do it online. You can reteach the whole class. Sometimes your whole class doesn't understand what you're talking about, and you need to find other strategies that you use to reteach them. I will also talk about being sensitive. Well, data helps us to be sensitive. I would look at some of these scenarios. Among other forms of data, teachers and administrators should read students' cumulative file to obtain critical information. Here are some notable examples. A girl who often missed class was homeless, living in the family car. We meet this all the time. Several students who have been identified as gifted were inaccurately placed in my general education English class. They should move on. They should go to the gifted class. They should go to the honors class. They should go to the AP class, rather than being in a class where they are gifted and they are not getting what they should get, and then they become distraught and not motivated. A boy struggling to fit in has been recently diagnosed with schizophrenia. Yes, a student might just not have the right mental state, and yet you are angry with him. More than a dozen students who never wore eyeglasses in class or contacts, I checked, had prescriptions. Yes, I have a number of kids coming to test with me, and I ask them, do you have glasses? Yes. Why are you not wearing it? Oh, it's broken. Oh, my mother never replaced it. Oh, this and that. You have to check and make sure that they get what they need in order to do well. So from our cumulative data, you could discover a dramatic grade change at some point during a student's journey, from an A student to a D or an F student. A student used to do so well in science, and then something happens, and that student is failing. If you don't look at that data, you will just think, oh, he's always a failure. That's a never do well, like some people would say. You have to conference with the students. Students may share reasons such as their parents had a divorce, or they had to move to a new city or a new community. They are new in town and trying to settle. Crisis in the family, parents got into legal problems. I was reading about the kid who wasn't doing so well. When they were asked, he said since his father went to jail that he lost interest in school. Loss of a family member. Those are things that when it happens to a child, or they can really be distraught, and you need to bring them closer. One kept, like this was my personal experience. One student kept visiting me from a different district because he could relate to me. He left. We now discovered that he left because he didn't really have parents, or his parents were not in his life. He was just being moved by the social services department from one parent's foster home to the other. And he kept visiting, but by the time we found out, he was already out. It's an opportunity to be empathetic when we learn all this about students. You have to provide additional support. Sometimes give them something to eat if they need it. So you don't have, if you get clearance from administration and from parents, or from, I always ask their parents or whoever stands for their parents before I give them something to eat. But yes, you could do that, support the students' learning. So I've become more culturally sensitive and competent as I understand their social, cultural, and family dynamics. I had that child moving from one foster home or the other, and I found out on his last day in class, and I wept because this student had been a nightmare to all of us, and we didn't know that he was struggling. And then when they were going to move him to another foster home, they told us, and that was when it was so bad for me then to find out. So because we were treating him just like any other student. Had we known, maybe we would have given him more. So enrichment in our classes is something you have to read up. It is on the PowerPoint. You have to read up on your own differentiation as the best practice. I can't emphasize that enough. Do not neglect the high achieving students when trying to differentiate for the underachieving group, please. We don't know who the Einstein will be. Einstein was neglected, even he had to be suspended, expelled from school because of his behavior, and he had to start struggling on his own. Nobody knew that Einstein was such a great brain, waiting to be harnessed. So we have to give them what they need. Classroom enrichment involves digging deeper, taking a vast approach to learning, further research on the topic, a real-life approach to learning, activities such as exploration projects, inventions, and creativity, productivity and task completion. If you are talking about enrichment in your class, focus on those students who finish on time and they are accurate, and give them more and let them be more productive. That's enrichment, that's differentiation. That's the fact that you have one class, but 3-4 different groups who are doing different levels of work and different exploits, but the objective remains the same. Okay, so like I said, you will need to read more of the PowerPoint about enrichment and see the different components based on the abilities and based on their interest levels. I've given a lot more on the PowerPoints, which I'm going to share. I've given a lot more on it because I know that we cannot exhaust this. It's a course on its own. If we want it to be developed, we will. If I get enough interest, we could develop it a lot more. So data is in conclusion, data is a tool that informs pedagogic decisions for teachers, instructional leaders, and students. Putting together and using the information to address instructional challenges should be regular and consistent. Data enables teachers to understand and support each student's individual needs, educational achievements, and manifest academic growth. Feedback from this series of webinars is an important data that must be collected.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I hope that everyone is sure to practice and share the strategies that we discussed today with your students, your children, and your colleagues. We want to remind you all that this month of April is Autism Awareness Month. If you have any articles, questions, or materials regarding autism, we would love to receive them and hopefully find some answers for your questions. In addition, we offer a program for Sunday school teachers and pastors who desire to learn more about teaching and caring for members. If you are interested, please be sure to reach out. We would like to thank you all for joining Kofi today, and we hope to see you at our future meetings. We will be sending out communications for the next series of webinars, but if you have any questions, please join our Facebook group called COFY Inc. and follow us on Instagram and Twitter for additional information about our organization and any coming programs. Thank you.